You see, I'm getting a little psyched about it, guys, because my percentage of thinking that there's going to be football is increasing every day.
You must be incredibly psyched. You're playing Monday Night Football.
Well, no, this is actually Fox's theme, which has been used on Thursday night and Sunday.
Right.
Okay, let me turn this off, guys. Welcome. It is Thursday night, 9:15, the late night edition of the Fantasy Football Buzz podcast with myself, Commish, along with Cyclops and Keith 2020. How are you guys doing tonight?
Man, having a great day, having a great night. A lot of exciting things happening. We have so many things in training camp and players talking about sitting out for, to protest and all these fun things because COVID isn't enough.
Exactly.
How are you doing?
And you know what, though? I'm pumped. We're just outside of 2 weeks away from opening kickoff. So I'm trying to focus on the positive and what's otherwise an absolutely Twilight Zone alternative reality right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. And tonight, guys, we are going to talk about training camp. Who's having a good camp? Who's having a bad camp? Who's getting injured? And we're not talking about the third offensive lineman. We're going to talk about guys that could actually affect your fantasy football roster. And then after that, we're going to get into the rounds 3 and 4 of a typical PPR mock draft, mainly because rounds 1 and 2, most people already know what they're going to do or have an idea. But it's when you start getting a little further after the first and second round, things start getting a little tricky. So we'll get into that, but before we do, and I would feel remiss if we didn't talk about Jacob Blake and what's going on right now in the world. And I wanted to kind of get this off my chest and make a statement to the world that us here at the Fantasy Football Buzz podcast, we reject racism in every form. We are committed to being part of that group, that generation, those people that want that to end.
100%.
So I wanted that to talk about that first. Brad and I had a show which we dedicated a few months ago strictly to the topic of systemic racism and how sports dwarf in light of what is going on. And I just wanted to make a point of mentioning that tonight. We know what's going on in the NBA and baseball, and I applaud them for what they're doing. And I just wanted to talk about that before we get the show started. Guys, any comments?
I just think it's an incredible show of unification and solidarity. Where these, as an athlete, very often they say you transcend the sport because you do have a platform where you can reach millions of people, and to do what they're doing, to put themselves outside and above the sport in this unified way and sit out these games just to show their backing of what's going on, and they're not wanting to stand up or stand up. They're standing against it is the best way to say it. So I think it's awesome, not to get political, but I'm all for it, and I just love the solidarity amongst all the players right now.
I have generally the same view as we all have, and I agree with it, and I applaud them for what they're doing. I sometimes get a little back and forth about it, not because I don't agree with it and understand the what is going on, but I look at it from another way. It's like if I decided to just not show up, and not do my job, might be different, but the sports figures have a platform to do it, and a lot of the sports figures that are there came from different backgrounds, and they're all supporting. And I agree with that, but sometimes I feel like by doing that, they're sometimes not showing that are they saying other people should just not show up to their job and then everything's going to be okay and protest closing up businesses? Because essentially what they're doing is closing up businesses for their owners who are make their money by own a basketball team or a baseball team.
And I don't want to get into a debate with you.
Right.
The truth of the matter is that sports does pale in comparison to racial equality and what African Americans have grown up with and what they've had to face and what they face today. And even people with the money that some of these stars have are still experiencing this. So money itself isn't the answer. And what I have found endearing is the fact that there are people like Drew Brees who continue to educate himself. When he first came out, and what he said at the beginning of the summer, and he took it as a challenge to himself to learn more, to educate himself, and that's what he's done. And I think by having a locker room filled with a diverse group of people, you start to understand a little bit of what the African American community is going through, and it can only help. But I don't want to do the whole show on this. I just want to be remiss and not.
But I'm glad that we brought it up. I thought it was important that we talked about it a little bit, Commish.
And absolutely. And if anybody out there has any thoughts and they want to talk about it as well, give us a call at 772-800-2899. I do have the Google phone ready to go. If you give us a call, we'll get you on the air. I also have a trivia question tonight that kind of goes along with that theme. And this is a question. We all know about Jackie Robinson, guys, right? But who was the first African-American to play in the modern NFL since 1932, when I say modern NFL? And it's a shame that we don't know about this. And not just his name, which we will learn at the end of the show, but also the circumstances around why he wasn't allowed to play, and then what happened where he was allowed to play. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And yeah, you're probably going to have to look this up, and I kind of hope you do Google this answer. Give us a call, 772-800-BUZZ. And I'm sorry if I brought anyone down. This is an important topic. But that being said, let's talk about training camp. Guys, you have the floor. What's going on?
Well, I think some of the interesting stories are not just injuries, but I love rookies that are getting into starting positions that have an ability to make an impact, not just for them in their position, but for everyone around them. And the first guy I'm going to talk about is Joe Burrow. And the reports coming out of camp is that he is looking good. And that's just great news for Tyler Boyd and A.J. Green, who is also back in camp. And it's also very good news for Joe Mixon. So it's not just him that's going to be impacted by it. It's those four fantasy players that are all going to be rostered on teams in a variety of different positions. So I love seeing that. The guy's going to. I think he's going to make good on his draft position. And I like the reports that I'm reading out of Cincinnati camp.
What about you, Brad?
Yeah, and to add on to that, because he was one of my people I was going to talk about. Basically, what they're saying is he's breathing some life into that team. There's an excitement. Of course, Joe Mixon right now is dealing with migraines, and we know how that can affect players over the season. And all of a sudden you get to wakes up one Sunday morning, and all of a sudden it's debilitating and you might not be able to play. So hopefully that gets through, he gets better and he doesn't have to deal with that for the season. One of the
mock draft, by the way, I would love, let's have a deeper discussion about him, because I think that might have an effect on where
absolutely. Yeah. Right. One of the rookies, as you talk about, is Vaughn in Tampa. They're saying is not having a very good camp, and they're not coming out and saying anything, but there's some notes saying that he's kind of falling out of favor with Brady. And you have someone that's not having a very good camp, especially a rookie, that could spell trouble, especially with a 47-year-old quarterback back there.
And I've got news also out of the Jaguars camp, and that has to do with DJ Chark. And I heard he's had an incredible training camp, and he's got this chemistry now with Gardner Minshew that we saw a little bit last year. But Jay Gruden actually called Chark a specimen. And he's already talked about using him in the slot in addition to the outside, which is where he flourished last season. So keep an eye on DJ Chark and rising up. If we had preseason games, Chark would probably be one of those guys that all of a sudden, like D.D. Westbrook last year, that's going to start inching up a little more.
So is that like a physical specimen or a specimen you would go to like the bathroom in the doctor's office and give?
Either one. Hey, whatever. Okay. All I know is that he's looking good in camp.
Brad was Cyclops was a test tube baby, so understand somebody's coming. Also, going back to Tampa, because it's very interesting with Tom Brady there, who's I think 68 this year. They're saying, it's interesting because if you look at his numbers last year, they were not terribly impressive. But the word coming out of there is he looks phenomenal. They're saying he's throwing passes harder with more velocity. This is coming from Gronk. That almost at any time. And now with these two weapons and that offense, you might see a very revitalized, much more fantasy effective Tom Brady. So I think that's as much as
the players that he has around him. They said that like OJ Howard's been looking good with him. Yeah. Great. I mean, we know he loves his tight ends. You get those guys and then all of a sudden, and then you have Evans and Godwin and
the word out of camp with Godwin, even though he returned today, is that he had 3 days off in the past 6 days. And when everyone was asking Bruce Arians what's going on, he said, that's for me to know and nobody else to find out. So we really don't know what's happening with Chris Godwin. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying bring him down on your boards. I'm just saying keep an eye on that situation. He did return today. But if you see over the next week that he's missing more and more practice, just, that's something to keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm. And things going a little deeper for dynasty and keeper leagues. Some names to keep aware of. Jordan Love, who the Packers actually traded up to get, they say looks absolutely lost and just awful. And they're really starting to scratch their head about that pick. And on the opposite side of that, Tua Tagovailoa had a pretty bad first week, then came back and is absolutely positively lighting it up this week, looking every bit of the Dolphins' first pick. They're loving him in camp, his reads, his accuracy. He's moving around. He's shifty. He is really lighting it up in Dolphins practice right now.
Yeah, they said he came in this week a different person from who he was last week. Yeah. And what I mean is his confidence and, his ability to learn. And I think, without preseason, it has definitely hurt his chance to possibly take over the quarterback position in Miami earlier rather than later.
Right.
I'm okay with that. If you're going to learn from anybody, learn from Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm cool with that. But I think as time goes by and the more practices he gets, the better he's going to get.
Right.
Now, somebody that we have not spoken about once, I don't even think his name's come up in all the times that we've done this show over the past few months, and that's Jerick McKinnon out of San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Everybody's talking about Mostert, right? We saw what he did last year at the end of last year, which was shocking for everybody because in all the years that he was playing in the NFL, you never saw that from him, and all of a sudden he rose to the top. Well, Jerick McKinnon, who he tore his ACL right before the season opener in 2018, and Kyle Shanahan had said, look, there was a reason why we paid so much to bring him in as a free agent, and he's had a good camp so far. So keep an eye on that situation as well. Don't be so high to grab Mostert. Keep an eye on Jerick McKinnon.
Yep. So keeping with the running back here, how about Balaj going to the Jets? Right, he gets traded from Miami. Miami's got a bunch of running backs, and
desperation.
The excitement isn't about Balaj going to the Jets. The thought process here is Bell. Right, Bell and Gase are having a little bit of a tiff, and all of a sudden they trade for Balaj, who Gase knows. And what does that tell you? It
tells me that Adam Gase is an idiot because nobody would take Balaj. Balaj was going to be a free agent. He was going to be waived. Miami made it clear he was going to to go.
and they did trade him.
Chris Greer was able to manage a trade and get, even if it was a conditional 7th round pick.
It's brilliant.
Balaj. And I saw a tweet today that said Adam Gase pays for samples at Costco. And that's more or less what this has become. Because for him to trade, even if it's one pick, hey, well, I'm happy we got something for the guy.
Literally, we're about to put this guy on the waiver wires. And honestly, the best thing about that transaction is that we do not have Adam Gase anymore.
Yes.
Clear. Oh my goodness.
So Bell was already on my late, not in the first 4-round draft pick, and now he's essentially on my do not draft list, unless he's there, after I pick all my starters. I'm just not even going near him.
Yeah. Well, look, just so we keep going with the running back theme. Sony Michel, who had foot surgery in the offseason and was put on the PUP. He was at practice yesterday. He's officially off the PUP list, which is a good development for him. But the question is, would you be willing to take any of those running backs in New England? Because it's going to be 1 week, Michel will touch the ball 30 times, and the next week he'll ride the bench. But I just wanted to give everybody the news that Sony Michel is off the PUP list, and other injuries. DeAndre Hopkins had a hamstring issue. Kenyon Drake has a foot issue. Both of them have been sitting out of practice, but Kingsbury has made it clear that he doesn't want either one of them in practice until they're 100%.
Right.
So just another thing to keep an eye on out there.
So going back to the Michel, they said actually he came back in his first day of practice. He looked great. Rested, looked really good. When he was playing, he was doing really well. But again, in New England, you just don't know. For me, he's a third, a third running back taken, maybe even a fourth, and you take him in C, but certainly not your top two.
But not just in the running back. We're also having questions in New England with regard to the quarterback, and there have been reports for people that have seen Cam Newton actually working in the fourth rotation. So
that's Belichick. That's Belichick.
That is Belichick, but we don't know because we've never seen this in New England before. We've seen it on the running back side, right? We've seen it on the receiver side. We've never seen it on the QB side. And
what do you think the chances are? What do you think the chances are right now in 2 weeks that it is not Cam Newton under center?
That Jarrett Stidham would start in don't buy a Stidham jersey.
0.
Me, but I'm also not buying a Cam Newton jersey. Yes, Newton will probably be the guy, but I think I don't know. I feel like he's going to be pulled if there's a problem quickly.
I mean, look, I think it's been pretty obvious that with some of the moves in the offseason and the players opting out, this is clearly a rebuilding year for the Patriots. So why not see what they have in Stidham? And with Belichick, you have absolutely no idea what is going to happen. So anything is possible on that team.
Haven't we felt like that about the Patriots for the last 10 years?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Hey, another guy that's off the PUP list, guys, is Corey Davis in Tennessee. A lot of people have forgotten about him because of the injury that he had last year. He was having a really good year. He was getting his career best 14 yards per catch.
Yep.
And I don't think the Titans have given up on him. I mean, if you remember, he was drafted as the 5th overall pick in 2017. And because of what A.J. Brown was able to do last year, people have forgotten about Corey Davis. Do not sleep on Corey Davis. Keep an eye on him. I'm not necessarily bringing him so far up to where he's draftable in the first 12 rounds, but he does have playmaking ability, and he did have some connections with the quarterback. So who knows? We'll see. It'll be very interesting to find out on the Corey Davis.
So Seth, I have a question for you, Commish. You watch Big Brother, right?
Yes.
Right. Should they have like one team as like a Big Brother team? So they put all these players, like they'll throw a bunch of quarterbacks into one house and a bunch of running backs, and then they do all these competitions. Whoever comes out gets to start, right? And that's one team. How would that go?
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't think Tua would last, but I do like, the concept. Sure.
I mean, they'd probably be better than like the Browns, right?
All right, guys. Anything else in training camp before we move on to our mock?
Well, the last one big thing is the Montgomery injury.
Yeah.
2 to 4 weeks, and it's a groin, so those can certainly take time to heal and re-aggravate quickly. And they don't really have much as backups there. Tariq Cohen, but that's about it. And
raise your hand if you were going to draft Montgomery anyway without the injury. Yeah, exactly.
Brad.
Yeah, no, yes, that has an impact on fantasy football. I think that I would have been more willing to grab Tariq Cohen if the Montgomery injury was
Yeah.
a little more severe. Right now, I'm staying away from both.
Just-
Who knows what's going to happen? I know Allen Robinson, their wide receiver, is making his way up the boards. I personally don't understand that either. I know he's a good receiver, but we don't even know if it's Trubisky, if it's Foles. We're not really sure what that offense is going to look like. And some people, I think right now they have Allen Robinson and an ADP of 29, meaning he's going as like the beginning of the third round. I mean, at the end of the third round, I don't necessarily see that. But that brings us to our mock draft.
All right.
You guys ready? So
Do it.
let's do this. So what we're going to do is, and I know we had some problems the last time we did a mock draft because everything was so small. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to leave the draft board up. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the draft board up right now. And we're going to see what we did was, can you all see that? What we did was a mock draft of an average PPR league. Now, these aren't necessarily picks that everybody would do. But this is based on, I'm sorry? Did I lose you?
No, we're here.
This is based on an ADP system, right, where we got to right now. So what we're going to do is, Brad, you have the first pick in the third round, and we're going to keep going. We're going to alternate picks. But before we get to that point, let's take a look at those first two rounds and talk about it. Obviously, the first four picks, our first five picks, maybe even first six picks are expected. Whether it's Thomas ahead of Kamara or Kamara ahead of Thomas. Remember, this is PPR.
Right.
Then the Devontae Adams pick shows up, and a lot of people might say, you know what? Who's going to pick Devontae Adams 7th? But there are people, especially in the PPR, that are going to put a lot more value on the wide receiver. And Devontae Adams actually has an ADP of 8. So it's not unreasonable to think that somebody in your league might grab him at 7.
Right. It depends what they want to do. If they feel like they're going to get their number one receiver there and come back around and get a running back, okay, you're picking up a top receiver there. I don't think, I have the number, well, in our league, I have number 1. In another league, I just got number 7. So that's that spot. I will tell you, in that league, I'm not taking Adams.
Right.
That's not what I will be doing.
You're going to take whatever the best running back that's available at that point.
Likely there, I will, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's what happens in the 8th pick is that Derrick Henry is taken. And then we have this mini run of wide receivers where Tyreek Hill and Julio Jones go 9 and 10.
Right.
I have no issues with that. What I do have an issue with is that after taking Julio Jones, they went with Travis Kelce, who more or less acts as another wide receiver in a sense. But keep in mind that by the time the board gets back around in the third round, and we're going to show you, that it's going to be slim pickings for running backs.
Right.
And also with the Mahomes pick, it's the same issue. There's no doubting how great he is, right?
Well, this, interestingly, in this draft, which was a auto draft, right? They got Hill and Mahomes.
Right.
Here in the first two picks.
And I don't have, by the way, I love the quarterback wide receiver combo.
Yeah.
I don't really have a problem. I don't like the wide receiver running back combo or the quarterback running back combo, but I do like the wide receiver quarterback combo.
I do as well. And just to talk about that for a second, this year, I'm just a little bit nervous about it, just because if you have that quarterback wide receiver combo, you stack your team that way, which I've done many, many, many times. There is issues with COVID this year, as far as maybe a team not playing, and leagues have things in place for that. If a team doesn't play, you have to pick up players and this and that. Then all of a sudden you lose 2 top players there. So, if any year to think about it, this is the year, to maybe not do that with top 2 players like that.
Absolutely. Well, then on the next pick, the guy who had Derrick Henry decides, I'm going to get a top receiver, grabs DeAndre Hopkins.
I like it.
That's okay. I don't have a big problem with that. the guy who got Devontae Adams knew he had to grab a running back now because it was not going to be easy later. He gets Hilaire, who we all love. He's just moving his way up draft boards. I saw a draft today on Twitter, one of these fantasy leagues, and they actually had him going in the first round.
I've seen it a bunch.
Yeah, that's great value in the middle of the second round.
I don't know about that. I mean, we got to keep in mind he is a rookie. Yes, he has been looking good, and it's just training camp. He's not the only choice in Kansas City, so I don't necessarily think that. I don't know. I don't see him as a first rounder. I think at that point it's probably a good spot for him. Then the guy who had Cook, it's Jacobs too. He's got a nice combo. I think they're gonna whoever gets that pick is gonna have a good shot at a receiver there. Then Chris Godwin, which is also that's a good pick. Miles Sanders, somebody that I'm not in love with only because I don't think that there's enough history to show what he can do. But, I guess they're running out of options. And then came the wide receiver run with Golladay, Evans, and Cooper. Now, whatever order you think those guys should have been in, that's where they're taken. I think any one of those three could have gone in that position without a problem.
Right.
But that brings us to your pick, Brad. So assuming in this case that your team is McCaffrey and Cooper, right? What are you looking at now? What is your thought process?
So I am looking at going back to running back here because I kind of look through and I'm not taking Cooper there if I'm doing this draft. That's me. I'm not as high on Cooper this year as I was last year. I had him and he had a really nice year, but in this spot, he's not for me. But on here,
would you take a wide receiver though, other than Cooper?
There may have been other wide receivers that I would take here. I'd have to.
It's all right.
Through just a little bit. I wasn't set on that at the moment, but
well, assuming Cooper is the pick there, what would be your next pick then?
My pick here is Drake.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is let me just go in and grab Kenyon Drake for you, just so that we're official.
I know he's in a boot, but he's going to be fine.
Drake in that position.
I'm sorry.
What do you like about Drake in that position?
I think Drake is. I've seen Drake going in the first and to mid-second round. So I feel like it's a nice value getting him at the beginning of the third round, and I like the McCaffrey and Drake combo in the backfield. Lots of catches. Whether it's a half PPR or full PPR league, a lot of touches each game from both of those guys, and.
But you didn't think that either Mixon, Chubb, Eckler would have been better in that position. You like Drake for that position?
Yeah. Well, right now Mixon, with the, it's all about when you draft, what's there.
Right.
Chubb, I like. I feel like Hunt's gonna, and he kind of did it some games last year. Drake is the guy here. Edmonds is going to come in and spell him. I understand that, and he's in his walking boot. But right now, he's my guy.
Yeah, he has a chance to be a true 3-down bell cow. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So, Keith, let's go to the next pick, which you'll have here. Your team in this case would have Saquon and Evans. Who are you looking at?
So traditionally, I would be looking at an Eckler, a Chubb, or I would need to see the next up available running backs. I don't have my list in front of me at the moment as I'm on my iPad. But I got to tell you, in this position right now, having arguably one of the top three best running backs, a phenomenal wide receiver, I think it would be very hard to lay off Lamar Jackson here. So I think I would grab him there early third round. I think it's excellent value. Granted, traditional QB scoring, I'd have to go L Jackson here.
Okay, so now it comes down to the pick for my team: Ezekiel Elliott first, then Kenny Galladay. I think they've got a good RB1, a good wide receiver one, and now it just comes down. In my case, when I look at the receivers, do I like Moore, Beckham, Robbins? I don't love any of them. And I know that running backs are going to get scarce and that you're going to start getting the running backs by committee at this point. And since we're talking about a PPR, I can't pass on Austin Eckler here. He's just a PPR machine. And now this team is looking good with both Eckler and Elliott and Kenny Galladay. Okay, so Brad, now if your team was Michael Thomas and Miles Sanders, same thing. You have a running back, you have the wide receiver.
Yep.
What are you going to do here?
Yep. Now, as we were just talking about him, the Chubb gets drafted.
The Chubb gets drafted. Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, he's at this point dropping, and I don't see him going this late in generally any draft.
Right.
So that's a steal for me at that point.
Okay. And so, Keith, I'll put the list back up for you, but you have Alvin Kamara, you have Chris Godwin. So now you got to decide, are you going running back, wide receiver, or are you going to grab Kittle here? Here's what's available.
You know what? I know he's hurt, but what I'm reading at a camp, it's 2 to 3 weeks. Joe Mixon is he's available, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that is an incredible value right there. Granted, the groin is scary because that could be nagging all year. But here, let me make this a little bigger. Yeah, I would find it hard to lay off Joe Mixon right there.
All right, no, that's not a bad pick at all. That is, but you're right. We need to keep an eye on that situation. If you haven't drafted yet, just keep an eye. And to get him in the 5th spot in the 3rd round, that is definitely value right there. All right, so I guess it comes to me now. I've got to draft for a team that has 2 good running backs, Cook, Jacobs. I think at this point I have to go either with the best receiver available, or do I go with someone like Kittle? Personally, because they have the 2 running backs, and I know that there's the wide receiver list at this point is deep. You're in now that 2nd, 3rd tier of wide receivers. I actually think that this might be a situation, since you have the luxury, to grab somebody like Kittle and then go ahead and grab some good wide receivers later to make up for what you're not getting right here.
I like that. I like that. Anytime you can get the number 1 or 2 rated player at a position, you kind of have to jump on it.
Okay.
Well, he plays like a wide receiver 1 at the 10th position, so that is a very good pick there.
Right, and before you pick again, Brad, if anybody has some comments or they want to make one of the picks for us, go ahead. 772-800-2899. Give us a call. Just tell us which one you want to pick, and we will let you actually do the drafting without a problem. So give us a call. Comment also Facebook Live, YouTube Live. Give us a comment. We'll read it on the air. Brad, let's go to you now. You've got a team with Devontae Adams and Edwards-Helaire.
Yep.
What should they do?
So this is going to be, you guys are going to, this is going to be a surprise pick, and I may even be able to get him in the next round. But I do like what I'm hearing out of Atlanta. And I just, I have a rookie running back. I have Devontae Adams. So I'm going to go with a seasoned running back. And Todd Gurley is going to be my pick here. And I know there's other running back. I know there's other running backs there, and I know there's other things to get. Now, Aaron Jones is there, but I don't want Jones and Adams.
Okay.
So, I'm looking at the list and I'm looking down the line, and that's what I'm going to go with here.
Okay. So you go with Todd Gurley in this position. Let me go ahead, Keith. I'm gonna go ahead and put Gurley in. And talk to us about the rationale for your next pick.
You talking to me?
Yes.
Well, you are, Keith.
I'm blown away that Cyclops did not go with Aaron Jones right there. I agree. I've been hearing good things out of camp as well. They're talking about feeding him 15 to 25 touches a week. But with Aaron Jones, and yes, you have the Jamal Williams issue, and you're going to see a little bit of a touchdown regression. But he is unquestionably the guy. And to me, he's still a stud running back. So I love the Henry Jones Hopkins start here. So that would definitely be Aaron Jones.
Yeah, okay. and I certainly understand that pick. It's just with having Adams already on that team.
Understood. Yep.
Yeah, that's why that was my reasoning there.
Okay, so this one's going to be easy. They got Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. they have 0 running backs. So at this point, they have a lot of making up to do. So my options right now would be Carson, Fournette, Connor, David Johnson. Really, that's it. So
Lev Bell.
I love that. I know that out of that list I just read of Connor, Carson, Fournette, and Johnson, I'm going to get 2 of them, right? Because as it comes around, I know I'm going to get 2 of them, even if Swamp takes 2 of them. So I have to decide out of that group which one I like the most. To be honest with you, I like Connor, even though he's been dropping. Although it's also a PPR, and Fournette is a PPR who, does catch the ball out of the backfield. So does David Johnson, but which David Johnson are we going to get?
Right.
So, but you know what? In this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go with James Conner because he's next on my list. I have this list based on rank of the scoring system in our league or this league that we're doing here. So that's why I'm grabbing Connor here. Brad, who's the Swamp going to take?
Well, so I have Julio Jones and Kelsey, and I'm essentially in the same position, right? I need running backs here. So you took Connor, and as much as it pains me, I'm going to take Fournette here.
You just don't trust him?
You just don't know what's going to happen.
Well, think about where you are, right? You're the last pick in the 3rd round. You needed a running back.
Right. And I really need another running back here.
You don't know if you're going to grab 2 here or you're going to go with another receiver at this point. But, I don't think Fournette is a bad pick at this point. I think it's a shame that it got to the point where, you're reaching for these running backs, which is also why I don't recommend grabbing a wide receiver, tight end, or a wide receiver quarterback in the first 2 rounds.
You know what's amazing, and I'm not taking him here, and he's generally his ADP is a few rounds later. Mark Ingram had such an incredible year last year, and he played like half games.
Right, but things have also changed. And remember,
I know. It's just
begging for regression.
I know. So my next pick here is going to be Chris Carson.
Chris Carson, all right.
Yeah. So running back after getting Kelsey, basically the number 1 tight end, and Jones, the number 2 wide receiver, let's say.
Well, 2 to 4.
2 to 4. Yeah. I mean, they're all kind of grouped in there.
Right. Okay. So now we're back to what would be the Warlocks pick. And Keith, you're going to make this pick. They've got Tyreek Hill as the wide receiver, Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback, James Conner as the running back. Are you going with another running back before it starts getting to that running back by committee group, or are you going with the best wide receiver available?
I think at this point, being we're in that pack of wide receiver 2s, where there's so much that's interchangeable there. I'm going running back here, and I'm inclined to say David Johnson. But can you just what do we got here? Give me the next.
David Johnson, Lev Bell, Melvin Gordon, who's supposed to be getting the start in Denver.
Right.
Ronald Jones, who is okay, not great, not bad. He's okay.
Right.
Mostert, we talked about Jerick McKinnon. I know, right?
You know what?
Ingram and Taylor.
Yeah, I think with the departure of DeAndre, that's a lot of balls that are going to have to go to someone. I think I know they love Duke Johnson. You got the Johnson and Johnson connection there, but in the 4th round to get him there, paired with Connor and already in Mahomes, I like the David Johnson pick there.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. Okay. So now for Bald Eagles, they've got 2 running backs, the receiver. I'm not grabbing a tight end here. I'm not grabbing a quarterback here. I'm going to grab probably the best receiver that's available or somebody that I like. And we're in this position right now where a lot of the receivers are interchangeable. When you look, I don't know if anybody can see this because it's so small, but on the right side here, it tells you a projected amount of points. Yeah, a lot of projected fantasy points. And they have Allen Robinson, 204. And then DJ Moore, Beckham, Brown, Ridley, all in that 198 to 201 range. So I'm thinking who's got the greatest ceiling in this point, and that's why I'm going to go with Odell Beckham. The talent is the talent. the talent, and you can't get rid of that. So for this team, I'm going with Odell Beckham. He's coupled with DeAndre Hopkins. They have Aaron Jones and Derrick Henry. Looks like a good team is forming there.
Yep.
All right. So now, Brad, it's up to you.
I'm in the same position. I'm going to go back to wide receiver here. I got Gurley. I got Hilaire. I have Adams. There's still this like second tier group of wide receivers, as you were just talking about. I'm going to go back to them because running backs all of a sudden drop off, exponentially at this point. So at this point, you may as well wait. There are a few that I like, but I'm not going to take them now. And I'm going to go with DJ Moore in this spot.
Yeah, we heard from Mystic Zach that he liked the idea of DJ Moore this year because of the play of Teddy Bridgewater being able to get him the ball. It's not a bad pick. He is ranked pretty high. He's supposedly gonna have a breakout year, so not a bad pick for this team with Devontae Adams and DJ Moore. All right, Keith. So we're in a position now where Gator Nation has Dalvin Cook and Josh Jacobs. They grabbed George Kittle instead of a wide receiver at that point, which didn't seem to hurt him too much because everything after that were running backs, and then OBJ and DJ Moore. So are you going with a wide receiver in this spot, or do you grab a Dak Prescott? Do you grab a Watson? What are you doing with Gator Nation?
No, I would wait on quarterback at this point. I would be ecstatic to get Juju Smith-Schuster here in this position. I don't see any reason why he's going to not revert back to his 2018 status, which put him at a very high wide receiver one. Fantastic numbers. So I think that's a solid looking team right there.
At this point in the fourth round, it's great value. He should, he's going to be one of these players who should have a comeback year compared to last year if Roethlisberger can stay healthy and things kind of get back to normal there. That's a fantastic pick in there in this spot.
I can't think back to the last time with a healthy Big Ben, his wide receiver one didn't absolutely positively light it up, regardless of who it was. So, and it's clearly Juju's, it's Juju's field. So,
and this is right around where he is projected to go in most ADP drafts right now. He's looked at as a number 32 ADP, which would have been a few picks before. The only wide receivers that have higher ADPs would be Allen Robinson and Adam Thielen.
Adam Thielen, right? Yeah, they're all in that same group, like this round. Yeah,
right. So then go ahead, Keith. What were you going to say?
I just think Allen Robinson is such a crapshoot. You got a quarterback controversy there, and I have no love for Mitch Trubisky. Actually, if it's Foles, I think that his stock soars. But I just think Juju, to me, is clear-cut over those two.
Okay, so that leaves me here with determining what to do with Alvin Kamara, Chris Godwin, and Joe Mixon. Because we have a stud like Godwin, I feel like I can take a crapshoot here on Adam Thielen, who had a bit of a regression last year, but Adam Thielen still has a legitimate quarterback throwing to him. I like Thielen in this position. So I think once you start, I think we get rid of Adam Thielen. There's probably four other wide receivers left in that tier,
right?
Where then you have a bit of a regression. But let's now go to this team here that has Michael Thomas, which is like having two wide receivers. Miles Sanders, Nick Chubb. What are you doing here?
I am going to go with. It's funny. It's like both receivers on one team, Kupp or Woods, right? They're both kind of
right. Remember, it's a PPR, right? So who's going to have the highest?
I know Kupp fell off at the end of last year, and something happened there. Nobody really knows what, but I'm going to go with him. He just had too good of a beginning of the year to not take him. It's like not taking Derrick Henry right now because he didn't have a good first half of the year, but had 600 yards a game at the end of the year.
Right.
So I'm going to take Kupp.
But let's talk about this real quick before we continue. And by the way, and I'll make the announcement again. We only have 3 more picks left in tonight's mock draft. If somebody wants to give us a call at 772-800-BUZZ and make one of those picks, you're welcome to do it. Or you can comment on what you think of some of these picks so far. Were there any reaches, anybody that you would not have picked? Go ahead and either call us or comment Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and we'll get that on the air. But let's take a look at this board real quick, right? So we saw that at the end of the third round, there was a running back run, and that continued through the beginning of the fourth round, and then 5 wide receivers in a row. And mainly that was because of all of the running backs that were taken earlier. So now we're in a position here where, Keith, you've got a team that's got Zeke and Eckler. They've got Kenny Galladay. Do you continue that wide receiver run at this point?
I'm going to, yes, because you got the guy in the first position has both his running backs. You know he's taking a wide out. The guy right in front of me could go running back or wide out as well. The question is, so you see the team one, you got to think he's taking a wide out there. But I love the balance with Eckler and Elliott here. Galladay is a stud. The question is it going to be Robert Woods? Is it going to be – I know some people have DK Metcalf over Lockett, but I do love Lockett, and I do like Robert Woods. But I think I'm going to go with Tyler Lockett. He's just got such a solid connection. He's still the 1A to DK, the 1B for Russell Wilson. So I love Lockett here.
Okay, so if you look at the board that I have up, I don't have the draft board up. I have the available players up, and you'll notice, and let's talk about this. Allen Robinson is still available. We talked about why. We don't know what the quarterback situation is going to look like there. What A.J. Brown in Tennessee, we know what kind of second half of the year that he had and the connection he had with Tannehill. We talked about past shows that there's probably going to be a little bit of a regression there, but I think, Keith, you liked the idea of A.J. Brown. Then you have Ridley in Atlanta, Julio's number 2. But you wanted to go with Lockett at this point because of the connection he has.
I want a number 1 target on the field, and that's been consistently Tyler Lockett and a very good throwing offense.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Brad. So that brings us to the pick here. Now, the team that has Saquon Barkley only has 1 running back because Lamar Jackson was taken.
That's your team.
Round. I'm sorry?
That's your team.
Oh, so I got to pick here. Okay, so I know for a fact that I have to go running back.
Right.
So the question is which running back. I still think that there are running backs that aren't part of a running back by committee. The way that this thing has it ranked is they have Le'Veon Bell next. I'm not touching Le'Veon Bell. Yes, there is a Jets bias. I'm also not sure what's going to happen with his injuries and his attitude. Melvin Gordon has had a good camp. He's looking good so far. The news out of Denver is that he is going to start. The question is, will he finish? We don't know. We know that he's going to share the ball with Lindsey. We know that that's the way Denver operates, but it's a different offense, right? They've got all those new wide receiver targets. They have tight end targets. Locke is going to be finishing out. He only played half the year last year, replacing Flacco. I think you're not going to do damage with Melvin Gordon here because let me go ahead and pick him and I'll explain why. What'll happen is when this pick comes back around, I'm probably going to grab Taylor out of Indianapolis there. And that will be my insurance for having someone like Melvin Gordon.
Yep.
Okay. So now we're on to the last pick in the 4th round.
So
Christian McCaffrey and Kenyon Drake, Amari Cooper.
Yep.
You know.
And here's the spot at the end of the 4th round, and he's still sitting there. And now it's even not knowing the quarterback situation and everything else, Allen Robinson has to go in this spot for me. He's still at the last however many games. It seemed like he was catching 10 balls a game. And that's hard to turn down for any receiver.
No matter who the quarterback is.
No matter who, yeah, it doesn't matter. So that's my pick there. I mean,
no, you look. The question is, would it be somebody like Allen Robinson or somebody like Woods or Metcalf or McLaurin
or Ridley or somebody? Yeah,
but at that point, it's not a bad pick. Especially the reality of it is, in a 10-person league, somebody's going to be grabbing Allen Robinson early. So we can't assume that he's necessarily going to fall to the last position in the 4th round. Now, taking a look back at this, there's a few questions I have for you guys. First of all, which team do you like so far? Now, none of us are invested in these because they're not our real teams. We didn't make all the picks. So,
Right.
which of these do you guys like?
I will tell you the team I like. The two teams I like right now are Team 4 and Team 7. I like the Thomas, Sanders, Chubb, and Cup. I just think it's guys that are going to be getting lots of catches, lots of touches during the game. And I like what was the other team? Oh, Cook, Jacobs. I don't know. Is that 6 or 7? 6?
6.
Cook, Jacobs, Kittle, and Schuster. I like that team a lot.
And that's definitely my favorite team as well.
Yeah.
It's just such balance. You have two stud running backs.
Yeah, they're
arguably the best tight end in football, like a wide receiver 1 and a steal with Smith-Schuster in the 4th. I happen to agree with you there. I love that team.
Yeah. What about you, Commish?
The two teams that I like best are actually number 1 and number 3. Obviously, having McCaffrey is a treat, but the fact that you have the first pick and you don't pick again for 20 picks, the fact that you can get a prolific wide receiver in Amari Cooper, whether you like him or not, he's still that number 1 in Dallas. He's still going to be getting plenty of balls from Dak Prescott. Be able to grab Kenyon Drake, who is also going to be a PPR machine in Arizona. And then also get Allen Robinson, who is the number 1 wide receiver in Chicago. You got number one. I don't see any weakness in the first team.
Now,
and the same thing goes for the third team in that they have both Elliott and Eckler, Kenny Galladay, who's the starter. Although Lockett is going to share, I'm liking that team too. But I think 1 is my favorite.
So just so you know, for Team 1 and for anybody watching or they're going to listen later, we did not do the first 2 rounds of picks. We did rounds 3 and 4. We let the computer pick the first 2 rounds. So just so you know, I would have taken Drake in the end of the 2nd and Cooper at the beginning of the 3rd.
Right. I understand. They wouldn't have mattered at that point.
No, I understand that.
Something else I wanted to talk about was, as these picks move forward, and maybe we'll do rounds 5 and 6 next Monday night, but there's still a lot of good wide receivers on the board, but there's only probably 1 or 2 running backs left that have any type of
real value. Yeah.
Right.
Like every down value type running backs. And the 5th and 6th round is where you really start getting into guys that will make or break your team.
Mm-hmm.
The first 4 rounds, you're going to get a lot of studs and a lot of 1 and 2 players and go with that. But 5 and 6 and 7 really start getting into those guys that you have a feeling on, or you're going to move up and get, or try to steal. And that's to me, I mean, the whole draft is exciting, and I have several coming up over the next 2 weeks. I'm excited, but these rounds are where I really study to get those players that I'm looking for.
And it's a great point. This is where you can start doing a little bit of reaching, and in the first 2 rounds, absolutely not. You get your bona fide workhorse studs that have been doing it every year, or if it's a rookie coming in, just is painted as a sure thing. That those are always scary. But the 5th round, this is where you can start looking at the Jonathan Taylor's. I think he already went.
So quick. So let me interrupt you there real quick. 2020, and this story has to do with you as well. And many years ago, we were doing it. We split one team together for many years. And I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive it was the 5th round. It might have even been the 6th. We took Priest Holmes.
Yes.
And he was behind, I believe, Larry Johnson. And we were worried about Larry Johnson that year. He had carried the ball a lot. And we're like, if he goes down, Priest Holmes is going to be the guy. And we won the league that year because of that pick.
He lit it up. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's where you're going to get your that's what we always said, right? It's not, we said this a few weeks ago, it's not the person who picks Patrick Mahomes, it's the person who's going to pick the next Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And that's what we're doing in fantasy. When you look at a winner's roster, you're going to find guys that nobody expected to do anything, and they did well. And now is when you're going to start grabbing those players. And we'll continue this on Monday night. We'll go through 5th and 6th, and maybe what we'll do is get some guests on to do some picks for us or with us. That'll be a lot of fun. And if you want to be part of that, and you want to be part of the show Monday night, let us know. Give us a call, 772-800-BUZZ, comment on Facebook or in YouTube, or email us. And either way, we will respond and get you to be part of the show on that. Guys, I want to show the answer to the trivia question.
Okay.
His name's Kenny Washington. He was drafted by the LA Rams in 1946. So when you think about the fact that from 1932 to 1946, no African-American players were allowed to play in the NFL. Now, there wasn't a written rule that said you weren't allowed to play, but it was known throughout the league that you do not draft African-Americans. And there were people, by the way, in college who led the league. Kenny Washington actually led the league in rushing in his senior year of college. And when he was supposed to be drafted, no team would touch him. And he ended up going into a competitor of the NFL and played for a few years over there. And it wasn't until he was already maybe 3-4 years out of college that he was selected by the Rams in the draft. He wasn't the same Kenny Washington, but he was the first African-American ever to play in the modern NFL. And the reason that the LA Rams decided to do it, why they decided to integrate, was that all of the African-American or the black newspapers in LA started getting wind of the fact that why are these guys so good in college, but now the NFL is saying you're not good enough for us, and it didn't make sense. And it was clear systemic racism. And so what the LA Rams owner did was they decided, you know what, it's going to stop here with regard to racism in the NFL. And they drafted Kenny Washington, who played for them for a few years, even though he was hurt. You know, it's a shame that people don't talk about Kenny Washington like they do Jackie Robinson. But
I was going to say, it's baffling, actually, when you look at all the notoriety that Jackie Robinson has, how he crashed the barriers, that most people have never even heard of this, nor has anyone thought who was the first African-American to crash that barrier in the NFL. It's kind of bizarre when you think about it, that it's such an unknown quantity.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, we still, as we found out with Jonathan Martin when he was with the Dolphins, to this day in the locker room, there's plenty of racism to go around. I don't know if y'all saw Brian Urlacher's tweet today, but the point is, it's not like racism has disappeared in the NFL. And, you know, so hats off to the owners of the LA Rams from back in the 1940s to take a chance on Kenny Washington. But look what he was able to do, and look what they've been able to do to this point. We just hope that things continue to, I want to say, get better. But, you know, we talked about it at the beginning of the show, and I'm not going to get into it again. But, you know, we are here to reject any type of racism on the Fantasy Football Buzz podcast, especially against African Americans.
Speaking of which, we hope you enjoyed this show instead of maybe watching the RNC.
I think I just threw up on my mouth.
All right, so guys, we're going to continue this on Monday night. We'll have another trivia question Monday night that hopefully somebody will get this time, and we'll get people to join us. We'll do another mock draft. We'll talk about more of what's going on in training camp. Every day, more and more news is coming out, guys, and we're getting closer and closer to the NFL.
All right.
On Monday night, if you had your draft already, we're getting to that time. Draft dates are set. They're happening. Call in Monday night. We want to hear your team. What? Give us some good intel. What happened during your draft? What was surprising? What were some of your value picks? What were some of your reaches? Tell us your team. We'll have a fun time talking about it and evaluating it. So don't be shy. Pick up that phone. Give us a shout.
All right.
Indeed.
Thanks a lot. All right, guys. I will see you all Monday night. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Stay safe, and we will talk to you later.
See you Monday night.